Right, so warm greetings to all of you present here, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome the members of two wonderful organizations to this meeting, where we will be talking about real issues and plausible solutions over the next 1 hour. I am Dia Menon, a global intern at Spikeview and executive director of internal affairs at MindChamps, and I will be your host for today's panel discussion. Having been part of both the organizations for about a year, I'm truly excited for today's discussion and can't wait to listen in on on all the insightful thoughts and amazing ideas that will stem up from today's discussion. And I warmly welcome all of you aboard today's panel. So without further ado, let me introduce Ms. Ekta Sahasi, founder and CEO of Spikeview. So prior to Spikeview, Ekta has spent 20 years at large corporates and startups in Silicon Valley and leading their corporate innovation, research, and digital transformation efforts. She's also a seasoned technology investor, a mentor, and an advisor, and is always excited to discuss ideas that will have a profound impact on our global society. Welcome, Ekta, and we would love to hear a few words from you.
Thank you, Dia. It's a absolute pleasure to be here with everyone, talking a little bit about this important global topic. As Dia said, Ekta Sahasi, founder and CEO of Spikeview. Our mission is to enable every student across the globe to organize their narrative and maximize their potential. And we can't be more excited to have conversations with young adults about topics that are near and dear to their hearts. There's always so much going on in this world, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here discussing mental health and all things that are important to the youth.
Thank you so much, Ekta, and I once again welcome you and all the other members of Spikeview to the panel discussion today. I'd now like to introduce Ms. Anaga Rajesh, the co-founder and CEO of MindChamps. She is a university student and an avid reader and passionate speaker. She currently serves as a member of the Girls in Science 4 SDGs platform under the aegis of United Nations. She is the co-founder of Nuclear for Peace and is also a TEDx speaker. Her poems have been published by Learning and Creativity, an international platform for budding writers, and she's also the winner of the prestigious Sheikh Hamdan Award. It is wonderful to have you here, Anaga, and we would love to have you address the gathering.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. That was a very, well-researched one. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm pretty much, Dia has said everything about me, so I'll tell you a little bit about MindChamps. MindChamps is an organization that was founded back in 2019 by a group of young people. And our goal is to make mental health more inclusive, more accessible to young people across the world. We focus on awareness, and we are slowly moving towards the educational aspect of mental health as well, how to integrate mental health into curriculums, how to offer training programs to young people, how to produce content that is meaningful to young adults across the world. So that's what we're doing at MindChamps. I'm so excited to be here at this discussion with Spikeview, which is a social media platform that I find extremely different from usual social media platforms in the sense that it feels more safe on Spikeview. And it is also very, it takes a very good stance on data protection in general and make sure that social media is more mental health friendly. So I'm super excited to be here and discuss with all the panelists out here about social media, mental health, and everything in between. So thank you. Looking forward.
Thank you, Anaga. And I once again extend a warm welcome to you and the members of MindChamps gathered here today. So MindChamps and Spikeview are two of the remarkable organizations that I know, and I work directly with them, and they work for teens themselves. And for teens, social media is a fact of life. And as a matter of fact, social media is the central a part of everyone's life now. And from the perspective of most teens, parents, and educators, this is pretty good news because social media benefits adolescents and teens by helping them develop communication skills, make friends, pursue areas of interests, and share thoughts and ideas, and much more. However, it is a much known fact that, like most other technologies, social media can be double sided, and it depends on the user as to which side they expose themselves to. But some things that come with social media are inevitable, such as the plethora of information, the excess of people, and most popularly, the toxicity that may come with it. A survey by Pew's Research Center found that 90% of teens believe online harassment is a problem for people of their age, and 63% of them identify it as a major problem. Research reported in the journal JAMA Psychiatry found that adolescents who use social media more than 3 hours a day may be at a heightened risk of mental problems, particularly internalizing problems. However, only 24% of teens believe social media has a generally negative effect, while 31% say its effect is positive, and another 45% of them believe that its impact is neutral, neither positive nor negative. We live in an era where the mind matters more than anything, and taking care of one's mental well being is not just a choice, but it has become a necessity. The statement proves itself even more valuable and true while we take the ongoing pandemic into the context and the importance of striking a balance between our social lives as well as mental well being increases almost tenfold. So, in this panel, two wonderful platforms with a vision for betterment meet and discuss their views, potentials, and aspirations on the integration of mental well being and social media. Spikeview and Mindjams that actively use technology to propagate their messages and functions exchange their core values through this panel and wish to strengthen the bond between social networking and mental well being platforms. So we will now move on to the open discussion with today's panel. After I give a brief about the topic of discussion, kindly use the raise hand option so that I can call on you to voice out your contributions. With that being said, our first topic of discussion involves the panel's raw opinion on mental health issues foraging its way in digital era. How has the digital era either closed or opened the gateway for boiling mental issues in a technologically forward world? And how have you found it impacting your life? Yeah, Farah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like you sort of already touched on, it really creates, I feel like, this maybe toxic and artificial idea of what is supposed to be. I find this a lot, like, especially on medias like Instagram or really large social media where people are constantly posting about their lives. It just implies this idea, and that can create a lot of pressure and a lot of competition, and it can really just lead to a lot of unhealthy habits. And I think that that's a really big point and really common.
Yep. I agree that, sometimes we get on social media and then there's a lot of expectations which are accumulated by a lot of users, and we're basically opening ourselves to the world. So it can have that pressure impact. What do you have to say about this, Anaga?
As an organization using specifically Instagram and LinkedIn to sort of get our message across, I think the challenges pointed out by Farah are very, very real. But at the same time, I think these social media platforms essentially sort of democratize an opportunity for individuals to speak. Right? I mean, in the past, individuals have had to rely on say radio stations, newspapers to get their message across, and not many people are able to get their voices across through these large media platforms. And that's why social media essentially became such a meaningful trend. So everyone's got their voice and everyone's got a platform to voice that, and people who voice it the best, they get recognized the most. So it's sort of an opportunity for especially young people who may not have access to a lot of resources to essentially put their message across. Social media has been playing a key role, especially in the work being done by the Mind Champs. So we've been doing awareness campaigns, we've been doing interviews with people, and we've been able to reach out to so many experts and individuals from across the world. I mean, including even people from Spikeview. We've got to be able to connect with each other essentially because of some form of social media. So I think the sort of impact that it has is very huge, and it's important for us to channel the way we interact with social media in a way that benefits us and those around us in a positive manner.
Right, I absolutely agree with you, Anaga. Like in 2020 alone, with the onset of this pandemic, it was inevitably social media that actually came to the rescue. Like I was feeling so closed in by the four walls of my house. So it does open a couple of gateways, couple of doors to a lot more opportunities. Ekta, I'm really, looking forward to your answer on this because you have been working with Spikeview, which is for teens. So, what do you have to say about how social media is with teens?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sort of stepping back, right, and thinking about social media as a whole, right? It's not, I would say social media has done a phenomenal job of connecting us globally, not just the teens, but, us as individuals from different regions of the world. I mean, and we just sort of come together and able to connect, collaborate, and also share ideas, right? So from that standpoint, I think it's been phenomenal. I think where the pendulum has swung too far, and I can speak to this not only as a business person who sort of lives and breathes the space, but also as an observer, as a mom of 3 teenagers, right? And what they're doing on social media. And I think where we as a society start to become very challenged with social media is where a student gets on a device and is mindlessly scrolling through it and endlessly spending time just consuming information, almost information overload, without maybe necessarily having the tool to discern and figure out what is good piece of information, what is a piece of information that could be valuable. Not all pieces of information that they're consuming are necessarily good for them, right? And so I think it's not just social media in itself as a piece of technology that's the issue. It's what our students are doing on it. It's how our students and our children are being trained to understand and consume this sort of newer access to information, right? And a lot of this time that's going on social media is really looking at and gathering information about what else is happening with somebody else. I think that where we're trying to go, and where I think we as a society maybe need to think about, social media, it's here to stay. Like, let's not kid ourselves. It's gonna be here. The question is, how are we gonna swing the pendulum back so there is some purpose, there's some intent? And a lot of kind of the genesis of Spikeview, and where we've started to focus and looking at what some of the dominant social networks as well as networking platform have been able to do, is taking the amazing things, that the connections that they're building, but then giving at the individual student level the ability to contribute in a very positive manner. Not just be a follower, not just be a consumer of information, but taking that information and being able to react to it, being able to constructively contribute to not only sharing their ideas, but then taking those ideas and sharing them with people from different walks of life so that they could relate to different walks of life. And I think that's the critical sort of, it's a subtle difference, but it's a critical one, where you're taking students to become much more of contributors in a global society, rather than just sort of mindlessly, scrolling and consuming information. And I think we as a society need to start turning the corner on that. I think if we start doing that, if we start equipping our students with that kind of education as they're going and being on these platforms, then I think they have all the toolkits in their toolbox that enable them to be wildly successful and in a good way, exploiting these platforms to drive benefits for themselves, drive outcomes for themselves, drive opportunities for themselves, right? So, let's say it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just how we as a society are working with it to take advantage of it.
Thank you so much, Ekta, for that very holistic approach to how social media is a boon or a bane, as many people debate, and to talk about how information is just access in social media, because anyone is exposed to anything and everything. And I think that should be balanced really well. And as you said, like swinging the pendulum right back and forth, and using that beneficial information, sharing it is very important. But I think one of the key ideas that Farah and again Ekta were talking about was how like globalization has, kind of stemmed up from social media and how it's enabled us to be a very global person. But with that said, the pandemic has like literally closed us down and stopped like it has imposed physical boundaries with all of us. And this statement, I think, is something everyone will be able to agree on, that the pandemic has taken a toll on everyone's life. So statistically, a study done by NCBI reported about 50% of its 705 university student attendees, they resorted to social media for a longer time than usual during this pandemic. So I'm very interested on knowing what are the changes the pandemic has brought into your life and into your usage of social media that has drastically made an impact. So what are the changes that have been brought in teenagers in terms of social networking as well as mental well-being? So how about you can talk about yourself and what changes have you felt about this. Are there any worthwhile insights? Feel free to share. So yeah, Shreya, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think for me and for a lot of just, high schoolers and even college students, social media has been a very useful tool through the pandemic, being cut off from meeting new people, making new friends, and, connecting with your old friends. So for me, I'm a senior in high school, and obviously senior year is kind of the last year you spend with the people who took that high school journey with you. At the same time, you're trying to meet new people who are going to start the college journey with you. So it's kind of that social area. And so for me, I know I've been using social media to connect with people who are going to go to the same college as me or in the same grade as me, just to plan for the future and, meet new people, meet a potential roommate, things like that. But at the same time, I've also used social media, FaceTiming and even just like Snapchat or Instagram or whatever to stay connected with those who I haven't talked to in maybe like over a year because of the pandemic. So I think, despite all the mental health issues and just the negativity associated with social media during the pandemic, I feel like it brought more positive results than perhaps that negative toll, just because of the nature of how it invokes, communication. And more so, the whole world sort of experienced the pandemic at the same time. So it brought this sense of unity globally, where people were just able to relate with one another more. And so on social media, you'll see, people reposting each other's original posts, or just, speaking out on common topics and everything like that. And so it just creates a sense of unity.
Yep, I can totally agree, Shreya, though I'm not a very, avid social media user because of restrictions, definitely. But like the time I am on social media, I get this feeling of, being together, because there are so many people who share the same thoughts as you, the age group, you get to connect with people who are like-minded. So I think, as you rightfully pointed out, that since the pandemic struck everyone at the same time, and we are all in together, we were suddenly pushed on to the pandemic altogether. So that definitely invokes a sense of unity amongst all of us. But I'd like to turn to the mental well-being side. And I think I'd like to ask Swefa about this, because she's been working with Mind Jams, and her research included people who are like affected with mental well-being through social media. So Swefa, what do you have to say about this?
Well, for starters, I totally agree with what Shreya said. It does have a positive impact as well. But when we talk about mental health being affected by pandemic, I feel like there has been a negative impact. So when you're like trying to concentrate, right? Suppose if you have an online assignment to submit, the deadline's like tonight and you're trying to concentrate, social media can like sometimes set you off and send you in this cycle of unproductivity. And specifically when we talk about pandemic, there has been a lot of negativity on social media, whether it be, say, the increasing death rate, the increasing rate of infections and whatnot. Sometimes when you like scroll through and read such pieces of news and such pieces of information, it can also like affect your mental health in a way that you start to spiral down and you start to like think of this pandemic in a very negative way. And I think that has been one of the key negative impacts this pandemic has had on our mental health.
Yeah, when you put it in that perspective, I think I will have to agree because while we talk with our friends, yes, there is this image of positivity that usually drives people into social media, that, you know, it's an open, friendly community. But then, as Ekta had earlier mentioned about the information overload, and then we're constantly bombarded with things which are happening globally, which inevitably includes, cases rising, the consequences of the pandemic and the infections around the world, we do get a little scared, if I may use the word. We may feel hesitant to go out, and the kind of talks we have are like drastically, influenced by the social media. And I do know a lot of my friends and peers who have been influenced by this kind of vibe that is there, that is resonating through social media, and it has impacted their lives, and it has restricted how much they go out and they meet and they talk with people. uh, I would like to have one last opinion from Tanush on this topic of discussion. Tanush?
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with both Shreya and also Swaifa. I think just coming on to what Swaifa had said, I think also the fact that there's a lot of recent, there's always been crisis everywhere. And when I usually get to see my feed, obviously everyone's voicing out their opinions on different causes, and you're quite hesitant, like you said, on voicing out your own opinion because you might have different thoughts to what they might have put up, and you don't know what to do, and you usually just scroll through them, and you're not like really entitled to, if I go to breakfast, I wouldn't be wanting to put out what I had for breakfast when people are voicing out their opinions, because it's just so awkward, right? Like it just doesn't match. And so there's a lot of negativity going on around there. And then obviously on the other hand, then there's this positive side where you could have fun content on your pages, and you could have people talking about interesting news, and how maybe Google being, I think there was a keynote recently on Google, on how they've advanced in AI, etc. Having such discussions is also really useful. But then I think keeping that balance and finding that right balance in social media, and also not using it for too long, because I think social media like TikTok, it promotes a lot of short attention span, because you're always just scrolling, and so it gives you that negative impact of that short attention span. So if I were to pull out a book, I'll be like, okay, let me just move on, let me do something else. So I think there are some negative effects and positive effects, but it's about how you take those effects and then take it to your own advantage, or learn from them. And I think generally it has its good and its bad sides.
Thanks, Tanush. You actually pulled out words from my mouth. I was about to strike that balance and you just laid it out in front. So I think it's important to strike a balance. We've heard our elders say it, we've heard everyone say it, that we need to have a balance between social life and personal life. And that's very true. But amongst all the people who spoke up to now, we heard about people who support social media, who are neutral, and who don't say that, and they say that they have negative impacts and may cause detrimental effects on mental health or general life. So I think it's quite agreeable that social media has a stereotype on it, and I'm interested in learning what kind of stereotype are you exposed to about social media. So like for years on end, social media has had this baggage of stereotype or discriminative thoughts against it. However, it's like undeniable, as a lot of you pointed out, that there are positives which are growing and constructively helping the humanity grow into better. So, what, in your opinion, are those crude pictures which are drawn on social media by the general public, and why do you think they have been drawn in that way? And what are the differences that you observe from reality and what's being spoken? I think I like Nabila to talk about this.
Um, yeah, so there are, I think, a lot of stereotypes that are associated with social media, like we pointed out some in the beginning as well. And so social media and mental health don't really, like, most of the stereotypes say that they don't really go hand in hand. And mostly, like, people who use social media, they think that social media is toxic and there's a lot of information on it. And some of us are afraid of the side effects of social media, which is lack of sleep, overstimulation, depression, etc. So a lot of individuals, irrespective of whether they use social media or not, they assume that social media has a negative effect. There was a study conducted by Bashir and Budd in 2017 who said that social media users have embraced social communication as an essential part of their daily life. And the evidence reported in this study said that users were susceptible to anxiety, stress, depression, and feelings of loneliness. So people's assumptions are not far from the truth. uh, because we're like now aware of all the assumptions about social media applications, and we ourselves as users of social media are becoming more aware of the side effects of the extensive use of social media, and we're trying to strive for a healthier balance between the physical and the virtual world. There was a longitudinal study, a really long 8-year long study conducted by Coyne and his colleagues in 2020, where he found that time spent on social media was not related to individual changes in depression or anxiety over the course of the 8 years. So that means that individuals experiencing depression or anxiety do not experience a surge. So even if they have symptoms, their symptoms are not really aggravated by more time spent on social media. So there is that shift that is there now, especially because this was conducted in 2020. There's this shift between how social media and the time spent there is affecting us. But despite these effects, social media has helped individuals stay connected, like we talked about how it has helped us stay connected during the pandemic. There was a study conducted by Coburg and his colleagues in 2021, where they found that social media could be used as a constructive coping strategy for adolescents and for teenagers to deal with anxious feelings during the pandemic. And social media use applications have induced some restrictions within the apps to help us have a better and healthier relationship with the virtual world. Like some of the applications, Instagram and Snapchat, they have screen time trackers, and you are able to set up reminders for yourself for whenever you want to take a break. So social media obviously has its advantages and ill effects, and we just need to learn to um, be mindful of our habits and to curb our extensive use of social media.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nabila, for all those, really valuable stats that you've brought in so that we get to know the real world picture about how are these stereotypes and how practical are they in the real life. But now, like, I would like to know about how mental health, like we've been talking from social media standpoint that how it is affecting mental health, but looking as a normal person, what are your mental processes? Like, what are your thoughts that are concerned with social media, like devoid of that social media standpoint? As an individual, what do you think of using social media? What do you think of people who are excessive users of social media? So for that, I think I'd like to hear it from Farah.
Yeah, for sure. So when I'm using social media personally, I feel that a lot of times, like Ekta brought up, it is sort of an escape, sort of just like mindlessly scrolling, maybe for entertainment purposes. And so I think for me and for a lot of people around me, it does have the stereotype of maybe having more of that negative impact. But I also like to say that I think one of the benefits is that you can you can sort of make it what you want. You can follow beneficial accounts if you would like. You can surround yourself with just information that's going to be beneficial to you. So I do think that there is that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can all collectively agree that though there is this stereotype of, social media being kind of like a black hole which sucks you into it once you get on it, and it's quite hard to get out of it. And, this endless scrolling, as Tanush had pointed out, the short attention span, those are a couple of the things that I have heard about social media. So that's why I think I still may be a little hesitant to actually explore a lot more social media apps. But as some of you pointed out rightly, that there are good parts of using social media. It's just about how you strike a balance, how you are mindful about using it, and how you control yourself. So uh, I think unanimously everyone just wants a safer social media platform, and we all need social media to help us restrict ourselves, to control ourselves, so that it doesn't, impact us a lot, so that we know that it's going to help us, so we don't have to take a lot of effort. And I think that's a little more mentally relieving also. So talking about making ripples in safe social media, how does a platform like Spikeview set itself apart from general social media? And how is it proving to be a revolution in safe social media? And how is it benefiting, like aiming to benefit teens overall? Uh, for that, I think I'd like to hear it from Shreya. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I feel like Spikeview takes kind of the benefits of social media and maybe gets rid of some of the negative effects. So just to talk from a social media standpoint, it gives you that feeling of you're scrolling through your feed, but what's on your feed, it tends to be more productive information rather than more for like entertainment. So you can find opportunities or scroll through or see people and like what they need help with, or see what people are doing, like the business ideas they might have. And so it creates like a more productive network. And also social media tends to help with networking, and so I think Spikeview does a great job of taking that aspect on as well. You can connect with different people, you can join different pre-existing groups based on your interests and meet with other people who have similar interests. So I think it handles the networking aspect really well. And also just in terms of being safe, it's definitely much safer than other more open social media platforms, in terms of data privacy and just browsing in general. I feel like it's easy for kids to be targeted on Instagram, Facebook, like those open social medias, whereas Spikeview does a really good job of kind of keeping you safe, I would say, and just giving you like the benefits of what those other platforms would have. And just aside from all of that, how on Instagram, you post, you create posts, you have your page that has like all your posts, all your content. Spikeview even gives you that feel, but instead of posting going out for breakfast or whatever, you post something more productive about yourself, like your hobbies, what you've accomplished, what your activities are. And I feel like that can also even help you in better networking with people who maybe relate to you.
Yep, absolutely. So when Ekta introduced Spikeview to me last July, August, I was quite intrigued by how different this was, from a conventionally claimed social media platform, because of all the positives it had outweighing any negatives which possibly might be there, because it enabled you to like portray yourself uniquely, which boosted my self-confidence, because whenever I put in my achievements and I had an overall look at it, whenever I shared it with someone, I felt so good about myself. And other than that, as Shreya rightfully mentioned, it has a very wide networking platform where you can find like-minded fellow mates and create groups, or even reach out to like mentors and other people and get your opinions from them. But the best point was it was all a safe and secure network that you can report, you can talk, and it's a very positive platform. At least I felt that way. And as my friend Tanush, he also joined me in Spikeview kind of the same time. Tanush, I'm interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Dia. So I think when I first got to know about Spikeview, there was like as you said, there was a lot of positives outweighing the negatives, and when I saw that, so when I obviously open Instagram or anything, I see, so there are different phases, I'd say, when you open Instagram or any sort of social media where you'd have a crisis going on. So everything's about the crisis and you're restricted from talking about anything else almost. And so this spike view, I think the other day, I think when there were, Premier League teams, the football teams just boycotting social media, I was able to voice my opinion on there when there was I don't know, another case going on Instagram, when it was more focused to that. So any of my opinions on there would have been less relevant. So I think I find that being on such social medias like SpikeView, having to voice out any opinion whenever it has to be, and evading the toxicity of social media, I think that was a big plus for me. And I've seen myself recently using that more than the social media I used to use before I knew SpikeView. And I think also, like you rightly said, just putting up your achievements and seeing, like, your overview of everything, it just makes you feel happy of what you've achieved so far, because maybe some of us don't really, sort of understand how much you've achieved. And I think just opening, because the first thing that opens up is your profile, right? So it's always good to see that, you've been doing something, whether it be proactively or just having, fun out there in the world. So I think that's what I thought about, how productive this platform can be.
Yeah, thanks, Tanush. Exactly my thoughts. And I know Swafa was only recently introduced to SpikeView, so I would like to have her words also before we move on to the next topic. Swafa?
Yeah, I recently joined SpikeView, and there's so many features that are different but also similar to social media platforms. Like, there's obviously your like, your sharing, commenting, and the feed section and everything of that. But it also helps students focus on their identities. Like when you fill out details of yourself, when you fill out achievements, interests, you sort of showcase yourself from like first person perspective, which you don't get to on other social media platforms. And other social media platforms sort of focus on social life and what you have to say. But this one focuses on what I'm interested in, my hobbies, if I would like to get involved in certain groups. So I feel like it's a much more holistic approach than any other social media platform.
Right. Thank you so much, Swafa. So from this we move on to the mental health aspect. So the importance of destigmatizing mental health as well as using social media to propagate the same ideal is kind of on the rise, and everyone is looking forward to boost your self morale with the social identity that you have. So in this scenario, how do organizations like Mind Champs provide the outlet that people are looking for to gain this solace from mental health issues, and how can they effectively boost their social identity as well as keeping a good look on your mental well-being and positivity? And I know Madhulika is actively working with Mind Champs since the very beginning, so I'm really interested in what she has to say. Madhulika?
Yes. So yeah, we already know there are so many organizations for mental health advocacy that are run by individuals who are mostly teenagers and students. But of course, it's not just them. But we can see that there's a first-hand experience involved in the content that they make. For example, like Miana Bryant founded the Mental Elephant, a multi-platform outlet that raises awareness about mental health. She actually dealt with depression and bullying and didn't know where to turn to. So she created her own support group for college students in 2016. And another youth-led initiative for suicide prevention is the Buddy project by Miss Gabby Frost. So this is a non-profit organization which pairs teens and young adults with a buddy, not as a therapy or counseling, but to help young people develop positive peer support relationships. And now, especially with the pandemic, many psychologists, many mental health caregivers have also started encouraging mental health and its importance on social media. Like we see coping techniques for anxiety and stress in the form of TikToks and Instagram reels. Like this was not very common before, but now we see a lot of Instagram reels. Like recently, like last week also, when I was like feeling a pretty low because I had like my final exams, semester exams, and everything coming up. So I took my phone, like open Instagram. On my recommended, I see people like suggesting tips. When I apply that, I feel a bit better. And that is how I actually relate myself with social media. Like that is like one of the huge positives that I see while using social media.
And there are also advocates and activists that have lived experience of mental illnesses or of caring for people living with mental illnesses. And they are starting to talk about their mental health journey and the best practices that will help. And the stories they try to tell, the problems they try to solve are very, very relatable. And of course, a lot of people turn to media when they need comfort. See, like we have all been talking about statistics, so I have another one to say, like nearly 4 billion people use social media in their daily or working lives. And yes, celebrities and influencers use social media to promote their brand and work, often at a psychological cost of their followers. But now that is also changing. Social media has become a digital channel to learn and engage from others. And young people like us, we are leveraging these platforms to call out the very tool that amplifies our voice. And the very celebrities and influencers who were promoting their lifestyle before are now using these platforms to share their own experiences with mental health. And there are so many content creators and mental health activists. They use advocacy strategies in their social media messaging to help audience like mitigate mental health concerns and challenge the stigma. And while researching, I also found out that they use a variety of advocacy strategies, including awareness raising, like support for particular policy initiatives, and they also focus on promoting diversity and inclusivity. As Anaga mentioned earlier, like the point we actually see is that if we were to look at the content that we consume on a daily basis, like as Ms. Ekta also said before, especially those related to mental health, the inclusivity is very, very low. We often see the same narratives repeated, offering very little insight into the perspectives of marginalized communities. Even though we live in the digital age, we share so much of content, but not everything is actually like gets the exposure that it deserves. So yeah, this is something I found out while researching. But when we read whatever posts are available or on our feed, when we like relate to it, we read that we feel that we are not alone, and someone in some corner of the world actually feels same like us. And it actually gives us a sense of comfort, a sense of belongingness is created. And to be honest, like from Mind Champs, like working for Mind Champs and the social media, the content we create and the research we do, we are actually trying to find out like how to break the different stereotypes and the skeptical information related to mental health, and we help debunk those myths, and we want people to like read and understand them. Like for example, we recently made a post about OCD and OCPD. Like while looking at it just like that, we'll like, okay, OCD, OCPD, okay, they're the same. But no, they're not the same. Like just one letter has been added in the short form, but still they are not the same. We show the difference between these two conditions that will make us more aware. Like another thing we focus on is like the different myths of different conditions, like eating disorders and bipolar disorders. So yeah, we are just trying to like give the exposure that each content like deserves. We want to create like a lot of exposure and break the stereotypes. That is like our primary focus.
Thank you so much, Madhulika, for like very beautifully summarizing what organizations like Mind Champs aims to do through social media. And I can like totally agree, because earlier on, a couple of years ago, social media was not that eagerly spoken about. In fact, some countries even considered it a taboo. But nowadays, we see those boundaries being broken, and more people being eager to share their stories, either anonymously or showing their identity. Nevertheless, they are ready to share their experiences, because somewhere social media has also taught us that there are people who have felt the same as you, who think the same way as you, and inevitably, it's okay to feel down, or it's okay to not be okay. So as a high schooler, Shreya had spoken about how she uses social media to like connect. So how about you, Shreya? Have you come across platforms which actually advocate for social mental health and social media, and what do you think of organizations like Mind Champs being on the go?
Yeah, no, I think it's great to see organizations like Mind Champs, and I've actually seen more so recently than before, a lot of high schoolers, college students just creating nonprofit organizations just to create change, to ultimately work to a goal of creating change. And I think mental health is something that's kind of been hush hush in the past, like people don't really pay attention to it, and it's just like it's got this negative connotation. And so I think it's great to see the change happening where people are speaking out, and organizations like Mind Champs are arising, which is amazing. And even on, Prime TV and just Instagram and everywhere, you can see like the change that's happened in terms of like talking about mental health. People are more open, people are sharing their stories, which I find like is amazing. And for me, I've seen a lot of people, I guess, talking about it and sharing their stories just on Instagram, which Instagram is like a main social media platform. When you think of social media, it's one of the platforms you think of. So I think it's pretty cool to just see that occur on such a mainstream platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shreya. So I think we've now come to almost the end of the discussion. And before we wrap things up, I'd like to bring up perhaps the most important theme of today, and that is to bridge this existing gap and misconceptions between social media and mental health. So how does Mind Champs benefit from appealing to user bases of such platforms like Spikeview? And why should being part of such organizations, both like Spikeview and Mind Champs, be a necessity for teens of today and modern day, as well as like, how does it tend to budding mental health issues? So I think one person has been quiet for the whole discussion, and that is Aman. So I'd really like to hear what Aman has to talk about for being the silent person in the whole team. I think she's really captured what all has been happening. So Aman, how would you like to summarize the essence of today's session?
Okay, so first of all, being a part of Mind Champs, introducing mental well-being, I would like to talk about what is mental well-being and what exactly we mean by mental health awareness and its programs. First of all, thinking forms our reality. Changing our thinking changes our life. Our attitude scales our altitude. So when we mean by the altitude, it means productivity and personal mastery. Socializing and social interaction nowadays, it's not possible. Comparing with the rest of the years that we have had among us, and the time we spent in schools and universities are no more possible. It seems impossible right now. But still, we were missing out some holes, and the social interaction was something to fill those holes. Social media usage was rising because of that, and it's still rising because of that issue. The main cause of usage of social media increase is because of we are missing something in our life that we think will be filled through the usage of social media platforms. We are not realizing that self-contentment is something we attain through healthy mental health mindset. Anxiety about our future is another cause of this pandemic situation we deal with, which is a mental health issue which is posing a lot of trouble in our life. We don't know what will be the future ahead. When many activities like sports, arts are shutting, Spikeview is actually widening much more global opportunities for the ambitious youth, isn't it? So when we look around, we see many teenagers not able to find or realize their core potential. Some are consumed by emotions. Some are not willing to actively explore it. Some have self-doubts, lack self-confidence. Aren't these mental health issues troubling a lot many future leaders? Aren't we missing a lot many valuable masters of the world? But when there are global opportunities arised by Spikeview, we need some help of organizations like Mind Champs. That's where we come with suggestions, programs, awareness. We help them to realize and understand what could be done in some similar crises like anxiety issues, depression issues, and gradually they too open up, easing their tensions. Indirectly, we open up windows for future legends, isn't it? So then, Mind Champs work for youth by youth. Similarly, Spikeview is a platform for the young legends to grab interesting opportunities. Together, we bring initiatives that will lead to victorious conclusion. When I say this victorious conclusion, I remember a love letter written by Albert Einstein to Mileva. He quoted that, how happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work on relativity to a victorious conclusion. I firmly believe that Spike View and Mind Jams are two such things that can bring a new phase of positive global village for the young legends of today and forever. We help young people in opening up themselves to global village, which means we spread awareness of mental well-being that will help them in realizing of opening themselves to an array of opportunities and socializing and getting solutions offered by Spikeview and Mind Jams. Common misconceptions that mental health organizations, its awareness are just for the people, for the people who are dealing with mental health issues, will gradually come to end. Mental well-being and its related concerns are for everyone. We promote the importance and raise the concern of calibrating mindset, its vitality in rewiring our thoughts, leading person mastery and legendary outer reality. I hope this conclusion and a fruitful discussion will lead to a victorious conclusion.
Thank you so much, Aman, because like for bringing in that literature part and how you beautifully summarized how Spikeview and Mind Champs can work hand in hand. And at this stage, I'm really excited to hear it from both the founders on what they think is essential for bridging the gap. So I think we'll begin with Ekta. What do you think?
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it was just heartwarming to hear all of you guys talk about how Spikeview is helping you and all the phenomenal work that MindChamp has done. So first of all, thank you for sharing that. It's always great to hear that from students and that we're doing our small part in having an impact. As I reflect on this conversation and the work the two organizations, Spikeview and MindChamp, have done together, I'll step back and take a societal perspective on this. And that is this, that, mental health among teens and young adults is on a rise, okay? And there's a lot that's gone into contributing to that, right? And so I think as a society, we have an opportunity to figure out and give tools to those, young adults who need that help, right? To kind of help them understand that there isn't a stigma around mental health, it's real, and then there is, helpful resources available and opportunities to connect with other people around the globe to get the help you need. And I see, I see Mind Champs to be a organization that's squarely supporting that, right? I do see social media, starting to support that with, people coming on with informational types of things that are, that as Madhulika was also talking about, where, there's advocacy and sharing personal stories around the journeys people have gone through. So it's just a lot of really fantastic resources that are available for people who are struggling with it. I don't think we as a society can talk about mental health and just addressing it as an issue. I think we need to get to the root cause of what's driving the increase in mental health. And a lot of that stems from lack of self-confidence, negative comparisons, toxicity, the other side of what you guys have all been talking about on social media. And I think before a young adult or a teen kind of gets into that cycle of mental health, as a society, I think it is up to us to come up with tools and structures in place that enable the kids to not get to that point of mental health. We need to, provide a better structure within which they can operate so that we don't get to the mental health issues. And I think that's where Spikeview coexists alongside Mind Champs, is that we're coming in early, right? We're coming in at the high school level where kids are just starting to do all of these experimental, they're experiencing life, right? Whether it's through travel, whether it's through academics, whether it's through sort of experiences around their home, helping their parents, working with their siblings, whatever it is, right? We're giving and meeting the student at that point of intersection of them doing all of these amazing things, stepping back, as Tanush was talking about, and looking at not just what you've accomplished, but all of these experiences that make you unique, and really then giving you the ability to take that and find global opportunities that will help you amplify, right? And that in turn, as you're sort of making progress, makes you feel good, right? I mean, when you see your journey map of like all these like cool things that you do, and your time has a way of blending itself and you forget all these cool things you do. So if you could catalog them, and if you could step back periodically and work with your friends or teachers or parents or whoever and say, hey, this is what I've been doing, and getting that positive encouragement and feedback constantly built into your lives, right, through your full narrative that a lot of our global students manage on Spikeview, and then use that to get some outcomes for yourself. They don't have to be large, big, huge global accomplishments, but imagine if you could create this amazing robotics team with a global set of students who you didn't know until you were on the platform and started connecting. And then that led you into more opportunities around robotics, if that's what you love to do, right? And sort of being that, purposeful with intent, engaging and giving those kids the tool, then what you do is you kind of get around the whole mental health. I'm not saying we're curing it, but we're just providing the tools at the onset so we don't go so far into it, right? And I think that as a society is where we need to kind of come back with the pendulum. The other thing I would say that that's underlying both of these organizations, and I think it's critically important, is that the disparity of access and the fact that, regardless of the walk of life you're from, you could potentially have mental health. And on the flip side, you have some pretty amazing things that you're doing in your day-to-day lives that should be spotlighted, that should be highlighted, so that you can get the recognition and opportunities that you truly deserve. So I think what both organizations jointly are doing is really sort of, leveling the playing field for young adults to say, what, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, privileged, non-privileged, restrictive, whatever, it doesn't matter. You have a journey. Put that journey together, figure out where that journey can then, what doors that journey can open for you, get connected with individuals that will help open the doors for you, and then, confidently, very, very confidently move forward with what you have to, tell the world about you, your skills, your talent, and go after and build a future, a bright future for yourself. And I would say in 10 years, maybe we don't need to necessarily talk about mental health. Right? We need to talk about all these thriving societies where, people have global access to these opportunities, and we've leveled the playing field, and you can work, from somebody in Silicon Valley and somebody sitting in Doha, and collaborate on a project. Why not? And it'd be equitable and something that's good for everybody involved and the societies that they're part of. So to that, I mean, I am so appreciative for the opportunity to have to collaborate with MindChamp's team and Anaga and the rest of the students on this call, because I think together we can create something pretty amazing.
Thank you so much, Ekta. It's always lovely to hear her talk, because she brings in so much of insight, and it's probably from her experience. She brings the holistic perspective of anything she's asked to talk about. And thank you for giving us a hope note to the future, so that we can look forward to something if we keep up our activities. So Anaga, what do you have to talk about this? Anaga, you're on mute. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it has been an insightful discussion today. In spite of the time zones, we've come together, and I mean, it's early morning out there in the United States, and it's pretty much 8 p.m. here in the UAE. So I mean, I'm so glad we're going beyond time zones and beyond geographical boundaries to come together and discuss something that's so meaningful to both our organizations. So from today's discussion, all of you have brought out some really, really cool perspectives on both mental health and social media, and where they intersect. So we've spoken about inclusive content about mental health and social media. We've had Tanush speaking about how he wants to raise certain concerns, and he feels overwhelmed by other seemingly more major concerns on social media platforms. We've had Shreya speaking about how social media has helped her out with connecting with people who are going to the same university as her. Something that I did. I stepped into university in 2020, so this was something I did as well. I mean, reaching out to people who are potentially going to the same university as me, because there's no opportunity to sort of meet up in person. We've had Aman speaking about what she feels is important in the work that MindChamps does, and how she believes that helping young people sort of reach their fullest potential by addressing their mental health challenges and by giving them an opportunity to project the beautiful side of theirs and showing them that everyone has a beautiful side to them. And that's something I really enjoyed listening to. Then there was Nabila pointing out how mental health is so important, and how social media really intersects with mental health, and how there's really contradicting studies about the impact of mental health on social media, and how social media is evolving so rapidly. I mean, when I was 10, we didn't have WhatsApp or any of the social media channels that we use today, and I'm just 19, and in the last 9 years the sort of massive improvement in the social media space is just remarkable. And when there's such remarkable change going on, it sort of makes it imperative that we adapt to these changes and find out new ways and means to ensure that all of these new changes are really having the impact that they potentially can. Then we had Madhulika talking about how social media can be used as a wonderful tool for advocacy. We had Swefat talking about how the pandemic has exacerbated mental health conditions, but also made it made our platforms more open to conversations about these things. And we also had Farah addressing many of these challenges and also offering some insights onto how social media has impacted her own life. And Ekta has put forward some really, really wonderful perspectives on how MindChamps and SpikeView are addressing the same sort of issue from very different spheres, and how that offers us so much room for coming together and collaborating, not just on talks like these, but also in going on ground and getting things done, working on projects together, and sort of bridging that a gap between, sort of bringing that interdisciplinary perspective into addressing issues like mental health. Not just looking at mental health from a very medical perspective in terms of diagnosis and treatment and post-treatment and things like that. Also looking at what really leads to mental health challenges and sort of addressing them before it evolves into such a catastrophic situation and gets blown out of proportions. So it has been a very, very insightful discussion today. Thank you, Dia, for sort of bringing first of all, bringing both organizations together. You're sort of the bridge connecting both organizations, since you've been working closely with both our teams. And also for today, sort of connecting all of our perspectives and weaving together a very meaningful message out of the entire discussion today. So it has been an amazing session, and I think it would be great if we can take this forward and get together and start working on projects together. And I think we can have that sort of impact, especially because we come from very diverse regions of the world. I mean, the MindChamps team, most of us come from India and Dubai. And I believe the View team is also pretty much diverse. So I think we have a lot of scope for reaching out to young people across the world and making a meaningful impact. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Anaga, for your wonderful words and for literally capsuling the whole session, because we have had pretty much everyone talk about very pressing issues, putting in very valuable thoughts and opinions, and also coming up with possible solutions. So, with that, unfortunately, we have come to the end of today's discussion and session. So we have heard valuable thoughts and insights from everyone present today, and I'm sure it was just as enlightening for all of you as it was for me. So today we went on quite a bit of a ride. We started off with how social media affects teenagers, how the pandemic has brought a different kind of influence. Maybe it has maximized or minimized certain aspects of using social media. Then we jumped on to what are the repercussions that excess of social media may have on mental health, how it can be bettered. Then we actively jumped onto how Spikeview as well as Mind Champs as two independent organizations kind of tackle a similar sphere of their working functions, because that is how to empower teenagers and all of its users and bringing about a good influence and impact on their mental well-being. So both the organizations have been phenomenal, and I think from Mind Champ's perspective, their key is to destigmatize mental health per initiative. And with their work, with actively using social media and technology, they're being able to do just that and bring out ripples and waves in the world of mental health, where people generally tend to sit quiet about this. They are actively bringing in revolution and changes so that the world can be a little more open space. And from Spikeview's perspective, it's about owning a narrative. And Spikeview literally boosts your unique identity, and it helps you prep up to show yourself as a global individual to the whole world. So wherever you go, everyone is interested on who you are. And instead of, you know, launching out into a big speech about what you have done and who you are, Spikeview allows you to assemble everything that you are, put out everything important about you so that you feel good about yourself and the people who view you also feel good about you. So I think both these organizations which work actively for the teens do phenomenal jobs in whatever they do and make technology of the future a better thing for usage for one and for all. There still remains a lot of work to be done in closing in the gap and tending to teenage mental health as well as networking issues. But with organizations like Mind Champs and Spikeview, this only makes the future seem more brighter for all of us. So I would like to express my sincere gratitude to each and every one of you for being able to make it today and for enthusiastically contributing and expressing your opinions on everything we have talked about today. I hope Mind Champs and Spikeview can embark on more collaborations, more projects, and more exciting things in the future to greater heights. So thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Dia. This was wonderful.
Thank you.